Hello guys, this is Adit. Welcome to my channel Movement Science, where I simplify biomechanics with joke. So if you are new to this channel, consider subscribing. Also check me out on Instagram, where I post pictures of my notes and also put out some daily MCQs. The reference time for all the topics that I am going to cover will be mentioned down in the description, so check that out and let's get started. In this video, we are going to talk about the kinetics of the spine. The last video was about the kinematics, that is the movement that occurs in the spine. So this video will be about the forces that are acting on the spine. Now normally when I'm talking about the kinetics, we also talk about the muscles, but in this video we won't be doing that because the muscles will change from region to region in spine, right? So that we will be covering in the further videos. So let's start with the kinetics, that is what are the types of forces that are acting on your spine. So starting with the first, that is axial compression. That is basically if you take two vertebrae and put pressure from top and bottom like this, from top and bottom, that is the compressive force. Okay, so that is the axial compression. Then comes the shear force. Now in shear force, I'll just remove the disc so that I can show the movement. This vertebra going this way and the other one going this way, this is the shear force, because the disc is in the middle over here between the two vertebrae. When I'll be doing this movement, one vertebra going up and the other one going down, in the middle of the disc there will be a shear force, that is the mid plane. There will be forces on the disc. Then the third one is pretty simple, the torsion force, the twisting force. So when the one vertebra is twisting on top of the other, that would be the twisting force that will be present on the disc and the spinal column in general. Then the bending force. So during flexion and extension, there will be bending or the forward movement of the spine, and these bending forces will again differ from the other types of forces. So we'll look at each of those separately. Okay, so let's start with the first one, that is the axial compression. Now this force starts because of the gravity. So your body is there and the gravity is pulling your body downward, right? And when you step, what happens? The ground also exerts same amount of force, that is called as the ground reaction force. And also there are the muscles around your spine and the ligaments, which all together, everything together, they create a compressive force on your spine. So that is what we are talking about, the axial compression. In vertebral body, 25 to 55% of the load is taken up by your cancellous bone before 40. This is the age. Before your age 40, the compressive force that we were talking about is taken up by your cancellous bone. Cancellous is the porous bone we have talked about in the previous videos. And as you cross 40, what happens? The same forces are taken up by the cortical bone. Okay, so past 40, cortical bone takes up most of the forces. Before that, it's the cancellous bone. Apart from the body, the Zygophyseal joint or the facet joint also takes up 0 to 33% of the compressive forces that are present on your spine, and this varies with posture and the region of your spine. So where exactly the forces are being exerted, that is maybe cervical or lumbar, or depending upon the posture, the compressive forces will vary, and how much of them are taken up by the facet or the Zygophyseal joint will vary. Another mechanism through which the compressive forces are absorbed is the nucleus. Nucleus exhibits a swelling pressure outward, which is countered by your annulus and the end plate, and this counter creates an equilibrium which helps in absorbing the forces. I have talked about this in our previous videos too, so let me show you that part again. So if you can see here, the compressive force coming from the top and also from the bottom, and what will happen, the nucleus will generate an outward force towards the annulus, and annulus will again put the same amount of force back at the nucleus, which will create a nice equilibrium which will help the disc to absorb the forces. So this is another mechanism through which the axial compression forces are taken up. Our disc also exhibits creep with loading. Now what is creep? This is a concept that we'll have to understand because it is going to come ahead again and again. So creep is basically a property of a viscoelastic material. A viscoelastic material is basically a material which shows property of viscosity and elasticity together. Okay, So here I take this stretchy material over here, which is a viscoelastic material I can call. And now what I do is I pull it apart with a force of 10 newtons. Okay, just imagine I'm pulling it apart with a force of 10 newtons. Now what creep does is basically, if I pull it with a force of 10 newtons and then I won't increase my force anymore, okay, it will be just 10 newtons constant. But as the time passes, even with the same constant force, this thread will keep elongating. Even if the force is constant, I'm just applying 10 newtons of force, but as the time passes, the thread will keep elongating. So this is the concept of creep. Okay, so the disc exhibits creep with loading. Okay, and why is it important, we'll come to know soon. Okay, so we'll keep that aside. So the disc exhibits creep and it also exhibits diurinal changes. Now what do I mean by diurinal changes? Now if you see, the disc has a nucleus and the annulus around it, right? So when you wake up in the morning, the nucleus has a lot of water, and then you get up, you stand, and as the forces are put on it, the water starts moving from the nucleus to the outer part, that is the annulus, and from there it will go to the cartilage, that is the end plate. And what will happen, the thickness of the disc will reduce. Hence your height, if you check at the end of the day, at night, will be much lesser compared to early in the morning. So that is the diurinal variation. With time there is change in the thickness of the disc. Also the disc and the ligament, as I said, they deform with time, that is the creep property. They are less likely to get injured compared to ones which don't get deformed that easily, like bone and cartilage. So this is one of the significance of the creep, that the disc is less likely to get injured because of its ability to deform. Next, going on to the further force, that is the shear force. Okay, here it acts on the mid plane of the disc, as I told you before. So basically the two vertebrae will be going in the opposite direction, and hence the force will be mostly seen on the disc, and the vertebra undergo translation. Okay, there is lateral translation, and the lumbar spine facets will resist the shear force, and then whatever leftover force is there, it will be taken up by the disc. So if you see the lumbar facet orientation, it's in the sagittal plane, right? And why is this important? Because when they are articulating, these facets, because they are in the sagittal plane, they'll prevent translation, right? See, if you can see, they're blocking the side to side movement, and this is why lumbar spine facet resists the shear force, and then the disc will also help. Now over here again the creep property comes. Because the disc has the creep property, after a certain point, see, if there is some shear force on the disc, it will resist it, right? But after some time the disc will kind of give away because of the creep, right? It will get lengthened along with time. So when there is prolonged force, when there is load which is sustained for a lot of time, the disc will kind of give out eventually, and all the load will be on the facet joint. Again, something you need to remember, that in long term facet will be affected more compared to disc because of the property of creep. Now going on to the next part, the torsion. Torsion is basically twisting force on the vertebra, and this is also called as the axial rotation, and it is a coupled motion with the lateral flexion, as we have seen earlier, rotation. And the torsional stiffness over here, the stiffness that is given to the vertebra, which prevents the or resists the rotation movement or rotation forces in the vertebra, are your facet, then your cortical bone, and also your disc. Now disc over here plays a pretty important role. There is the annulus over here in the disc which resists the movement. Okay, so I'll keep the annulus over here like this. Annulus is in the whole disc, and if the annulus is oriented in this direction, say it's oriented in this direction, I hope you can see the orientation, it will prevent the movement in the opposite direction, right? And if it's oriented in the other way, it will prevent the movement in the other direction. So this is how the orientation of annulus, that is clockwise or anti-clockwise, can prevent the torsional forces in the vertebra or the spine. But then again, along with the resistance that is being provided by the disc, there is also a high risk for rupture of the disc when there is flexion that is occurring along with compression of the disc, and then if there is a rotation, there is very high chances of rupture of the disc. So that is a risk factor that is involved in the torsional forces. Okay, so now let's go on to the last one, that is the bending forces. Now over here, bending forces is commonly seen in flexion and extension. So in bending, if you take flexion, there is compressive forces on the anterior structures, compressive on the anterior, and tension or distractive forces on the posterior. So if you see flexion, this is the anterior part, right? So flexion, it will compress your front part of the disc and it will distract your posterior aspect of the disc, right? So anterior structures are compressed and posterior structures are distracted, and exactly opposite will happen for extension. Again over here also, creep is exhibited by these structures, that is the disc, and if it goes past the toe region of stress strain curve, the structure won't return to the original dimension. Now again over here, toe region is a concept which is derived from your stress strain curve. Basically what it tells us is, within the toe region, if you stretch a material, it can come back to its original position. But once it crosses the toe region, if you stretch the material past its toe region, it will lose the ability to come back to its original length which was there. So if these structures go past the toe region of the stress strain curve, the structures won't come back to its original dimension, right? So if they are not in its original dimension, they won't be able to provide the exact same resistance that they were providing before, right? So this is why there will be high risk of injury. Also, it will be the same in case of lateral bending. So this was the forward bending that we were seeing, forward bending, right? So in lateral bending, what will be happening? Lateral bending, there will be the transverse ligament which will be connecting the transverse processes, right? One transverse process to another. So when that is being, when the lateral flexion is happening, the transverse processes will move apart from each other, and this stability is provided over here by your transverse ligament. And same concept will be applying over here also, that is the stress strain curve going past the toe region, that is it won't be able to come back to its original state. So again, lateral bending, contralateral side intertransverse ligament will provide the stability to your movements at the spine. So now let's summarize whatever we have talked about till now. We talked about the axial compression, where gravity and the muscles and GRF together create a compressive force which is taken up by your cortical and cancellous bone according to your age. Then we also saw some amount is taken by the zygophyseal joint and some by the disc through its mechanism of creating equilibrium by the nucleus, which puts pressure outward, and the Anulus, which puts the pressure inward. Then we saw disc, it exhibits creep and it is less likely to get injured because it can adapt nicely compared to bone or a cartilage. Then we went to shear force, where in lumbar spine we saw the facets were nicely arranged so that they could prevent excessive shear force, and they have to take up most of the weight if the forces are there for longer amount of time, because discs will eventually give out because of the property of creep. Then we saw torsion, where again annulus of the disc was providing the most of the resistance because of its orientation, that is clockwise or anti-clockwise orientation. The rotations were being resisted, and the disc has a very high chance of rupture with flexion, compression and rotation at the spine. Then we finally moved on to the bending forces, where there was compression on the anterior structures and distraction or tension on the posterior structure during a flexion, and exactly opposite was happening during extension. We also saw how disc shows creep property over here, and also the intertransverse ligament, it can show this same property. And when the structures go past the toe region of stress strain curve, there are very less chances that they come back to its original dimension, and there are very high chances of injury, right? So with that, we finish off this topic. That's all for today, guys. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, please share it with your friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and also like the video, as it really helps me out. Also let me know in the comment section what other videos you would like me to cover. And see you soon in the next video.